Let's go over encounters. So what is an encounter? In the VA, an encounter is considered to be any professional contact that happens between the patient and the provider. As long as within that contact, that provider is diagnosing, evaluating, or treating the patient's condition. So this can happen in person, face to face, by telephone, or by secure messaging. Aside from workload credit, there are several components to encounter data, including reporting, VERA funding, billing or revenue reimbursement, patient and continuity of care research, clinical quality assessment, otherwise known as SAIL, and productivity. All right, let's jump into CPRS and we're going to go over how to choose your visit location and how to complete your encounter forms. So we're going to go through two different charts. The first one is going to be an outpatient chart, and the second one is going to be an inpatient chart, so you can see the differences between the two. All right, so this is an outpatient chart, and you'll see at the top it says visit not selected. So there is currently no visit location associated with any of the orders or the notes that you're going to be placing. So you can fix that in one of two ways. You can click on the banner and choose your visit location and apply it this way. Or also, if you try to put in any orders, even just looking at the menu, it's going to force you to choose a location to associate it with your orders as well. So those are and it also gives you an error message. If you try to exit out of it, it'll tell you there is incomplete information. A provider and location must be selected before you enter orders. All right, so I'm going to put in a note so we can go through the whole process. So again, the visit location pop-up shows, and there's three different tabs. There's clinic appointments, there's hospital admissions, and lastly, there's new visit. So the first tab, clinic appointments, is your primary tab. We want you to choose from this list, ideally because those are existing appointments and they will show here for the past 90 days until today. All the appointments will be there for you to choose from. Um, so try to choose from this list whenever possible. Second tab, possible admissions, is primarily for inpatient. And the last tab is new visit, where you will manually put in a visit location, the clinic, and the date and time. So one of the instances you'll be using this is if it's a truly unscheduled walk-in visit, then you will have to do this. Otherwise, avoid using this because you might create a duplicate encounter and we don't want to do that. You can also use it for historical visits, which we will cover later. So again, try to use this clinic appointment tab to choose an existing appointment. Otherwise, we're going to go to new visit because this is a test patient. So I'm going to choose a test clinic. I'm going to hit OK. And the note title pop-up shows where we can select the note title. So I'm going to pick a test note title. And you'll see this is where you put in your note. And at the bottom, it says no encounter information entered. So we're going to address the encounter information. So on the bottom left, click encounter to populate the form. And we're going to fill out the four mandatory parts, which is P, T, S, and D. P for provider. So at the bottom, you'll see that your name is already defaulted there, but we do want you to put in your supervisor if it applies to you. So you're attending. So let's put in Dr. Shansky, add, and make him the primary. So if you have a supervisor, you always want to make sure that they are marked as the primary. So that's P. T is type of visit. So depending on the clinic, you will need to fill out either the type of visit or the procedure. So some encounters are simple encounters with just a procedure, and the visit type is not necessarily needed. It will be blank. So for this specific clinic, it does require coding for the type of visit. So we'll just fill one out. All right, so that is T. Next is S. So PTS, S is service connection, rated disabilities, and also the visit related to questions. So this whole section is the S. And this part is view only, so you don't really need to do anything here. But in this box, visit related to, there are sometimes questions that apply to your patient. When there is multiple, you want to answer from the bottom up. So if it's two or more questions that require you to fill it out, make sure you fill the bottom ones out first and work your way up. It's a glitch in the system. So just an FYI, you want to fill it from the bottom up. All right, so that's PTS, and the last one is D for diagnoses. So you want to choose from this list. Let's see. Let's do just a test one. Preventative, and we'll do some counseling. All right, so if nothing applies to you, you can also click on other diagnoses and search for your diagnoses that way. So we filled out all the required parts, P, T, S, and D. The last glitch I want to point out is you don't want to hit OK. You actually want to hit the X on the top right and pretend you're closing it, and a prompt will show up to say, and it says save changes. So make sure you hit yes, and that will apply all your encounter information. And now you'll see that all your encounter information is associated with a note, and you'll see your clinic is also there at the top. So that's in outpatient, excuse me. So let's go over inpatient. So in inpatient, you'll see that the location is already filled out. The only time you will need to change the location is if this patient is admitted and you are doing a consult for that patient while they're admitted. So you actually want to change from the hospital admission to the clinic appointment that's associated with your consult. So that's one instance where you will have to change it. So be mindful if you are on an inpatient chart to change that location if necessary. So because that's filled out, I just wanted to point out that when you try to do anything, that form doesn't populate because this is an inpatient. This just goes more into detail about what a historical visit is. So as I mentioned before, you do have the option in the new visit tab to create a historical visit. So basically, it's a visit that occurred at some time in the past or another VA or non-VA location, but you're not going to use it for workload credit. So some of the examples are intradepartmental communication, if you're sending letters to patients, or if you're doing an appointment reminder. But what you don't want to do is use it to document late entries of an encounterable service. So the required elements, once again, are PTSD, P for provider, T for type of visit and or procedures, S for service connection or special authority, and D, diagnosis. First step is provider, so select the appropriate providers and then mark your attending or your supervisor as the primary. Next is the type of visit or procedure. It is not mandatory to have both filled out, but you do need at least one of them filled out. So to do visit type, you want to go to that tab, go down to the type of visit, and then select the correct code. And if you want to fill out your procedure, you're going to go to that procedure tab, look for that section, and then choose what procedure you're performing. If you don't see anything matching, you can also search for procedures by clicking on Other Procedure. For service connection or special authority, service connection is usually automatically filled out, but in the visit related to section, there may be some questions that are highlighted that are mandatory to fill out. So make sure you address those questions and mark it as yes or no to complete your encounter. In the Diagnoses tab, you have the option to choose multiple diagnoses, as long as you choose one as your primary. You also have the option to search by clicking on Other Diagnosis. One very important question is, how do I know I did it right? So in order to do this, we're going to go over to the Cover Sheet tab in CPRS, and on the bottom right, you'll see that section that says Appointments, Visits, and Admissions. So look for that encounter you just completed and make sure that last column, Action Required, says Checked Out. If it looks like the bottom where it says action required, that means the encounter you just did is incomplete and there's some fields that you need to address. So if you notice you have action required on an encounter you just completed, here's a checklist that can help guide you in all the required fields to complete an encounter. So we have diagnosis, provider, service connection, visit type, procedure. For no-show appointments, make sure you document appropriately and then let your MSA know so they can cancel the appointment and mark it as a no-show. To avoid duplicate appointments, don't create any new visits or encounters when a scheduled appointment already exists. So this goes over workload credit timelines. So to receive full credit, you need to complete your encounter within 7 days. For partial credit, it needs to be completed within 30 days. And to get Vera credit, your encounter needs to be completed by the end of the fiscal year.